second, not the first period. The second, not
Yeah, well, it's not over yet.
It's not over, okay, still going. So we appreciate Craig helping us tonight. We will start with a prayer, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll get into our debate. This is Kathy Young, who is Dave Young, who is the newly elected mayor of Orem. This is Kathy, his wife.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful to be gathered tonight as citizens of this great state of Utah. And Heavenly Father, we pray that we can be kind and civil tonight as we learn about these candidates. And we pray for them. And we're grateful for all their hard work and all that they are doing. Again, please be with us tonight. And we say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please rise. Thank you very much. And begin out. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you.
We have drinks here on the table, if you want one.
Went to the right.
So I'd like to welcome you all here tonight. We appreciate the fact that you're concerned citizens and we want to hear from our four candidates that are up here tonight. So my name's Terry Peterson. I live in Orem. I am a former member of the Alpine School District Board of Education. I'm the precinct chair for the Republican Party and currently serve on the City Council of Orem. And so I'm honored to be asked to be the moderator this evening. So we're going to talk about the Alpine School District. We appreciate our four candidates here. The format tonight will be as follows. We will first of all have each of them do a 2-minute introduction. And Adam, which you will be back here in a sec. Oh, there's Adam. You moved on me, Adam. Sorry. Okay. Adam will be our timer. And so when Adam raises his hand, your time's up. Just I'll give you a heads up. So we'll do a 2-minute introduction, and then we will start into a series of questions. I have questions that people gave to me, and some that I brought with me. So we'll go through those first. How we'll do that is we'll randomly choose you so that someone's not always giving the first question or the last question or the middle question, but as we go through the questions, everybody will get an opportunity to answer the question. So we'll ask the same question, and if there's a reason for a rebuttal, if your name was mentioned in the other person's comment and you want to have a rebuttal to that comment, you'll have 30 seconds to do that. And then we'll go on to the next question. We'll try to do as many questions as possible. I've looked over the questions that most of you turned in, and a lot of those are questions that I'd already been given, but we will give you an opportunity also to ask questions. So if your questions is not asked, we want everybody to get that chance. Okay, so let's start.
You have to put the microphone really close.
Oh, I'm sorry. Put the mic really close. So I talk loud. So you. So you're going to start off by telling us your name, so we can all keep track of who we've got up here, and then Adam.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Oh my goodness, I feel like 2 minutes is a very long introduction. My name is Jody Hassan. I have been a member of the Orem community since 2008. My husband and I got married in 2009, and we've been here ever since with our 4 kids. I served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in New Zealand. Yes, it is as beautiful as you think it is in the movies. And I have been involved in the local education, the local politics scene for about the past 2 years. And I have a degree from UVU. I have a degree in biomedical science, as well as a minor in history and Spanish, which is fabulous. And I believe that it is really important to get involved in politics, whether or not you're running as a precinct chair, as a councilman, as a mayor, anything like that. I believe that everybody should be able to have the right to have a say and to be listened to. And so that's why I got involved, and that's what I've been doing. As far as my education background in Alpine School District goes, I have children who are in the Alpine School District, and they have had an awesome experience for the most part. And I'm very impressed with the Orem community how well we support our children. I definitely believe that we need to have parents and teachers united to be able to accomplish even better things that are here. And I look forward to your questions tonight. And if you have other questions that you didn't get answered tonight, I have contacted a lot of people, I've emailed a lot of people, I've sent texts to a lot of people, and I am open to any kinds of discussions. So.
Hi, thanks for coming out on a night where there's lots of things going on. My name is Karsten Walker. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. I came out here to go to school at Brigham Young University and have just stayed out here ever since. I got my teaching job at Mountain View High School in the 96-97 school year. So I'm retiring at the end of this year with 26 years of service in the Alpine School District as a classroom teacher. I love teaching. I've loved being in the Mountain View community and teaching a lot of students. I taught business and marketing, career and technical education classes. And then I went to the district for a little bit and I worked with business and marketing teachers in our district. And then I came back to Mountain View and I taught the financial literacy class. I've been involved with DECA and FBLA, helping students prepare for those careers and explore those careers. And I helped run Utah DECA for the state of Utah. And I've been pretty involved in the school, whether that's on accreditation committees or just serving where I can. I have strong feelings about education, and since I'm retiring, I thought I'd have the time to put into this position, and I think it can take as much time as you can give it. You can attend PTA meetings, community council meetings, you can attend a lot of things. So my goal is to give service to the district and to the Mountain View community, the Orem community, and just help people out.
My name's Cole Kelly. I've been a school teacher in Alpine School District for 25 years now. Taught at Orem High School for 10 years. I've been at American Fork High School for the last 15 years. I consider myself a student-centered teacher, and my focus has always been the student. You know, one of my favorite things as a school teacher is when I run into a student 5 years, 10 years down the road, and I have a parent here that said, I had a student in your class, and I'll always ask them, what did you learn in my class? And if they can't tell me something that they learned in my class 5 to 10 years later, I consider myself a failure with that student. But often I have students that will tell me, pay yourself first, or, you know, I learned about interest in your class, or I learned about how to get a loan and how interest works on a loan. And so, you know, I pride myself on being a student-centered teacher. As a board member, one of the things that I will focus on is being a parent-centered board member and making sure that the parent is at the center of who I serve. And I want to be somebody who listens to your feedback, your input, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, and respond to your concerns and your questions. So, Cole Kelly, common sense school teacher, and parent-centered board member. Thank you.
My name is Ada Wilson, and I'm here because of a fiery civics teacher in a little town called Seneca, South Carolina. Her name is Sarah Plyler, and she lit the fire under me. I've always been an involved citizen. I've been a Republican all my life, all my voting life, I should say. I've been a resident of Orem for 30 plus years. My husband Keith and I have 8 children who've all gone to the Mountain View cluster schools, except for a short time when we were serving a mission in Washington State. We also, before our kids went to school, we lived in Laie, Hawaii, which feels like my second home. I enjoyed that cultural experience. It was a wonderful time for us that really changed my life. Why did I pick the place I live? Good shopping, close to the freeway, but most of all, great local schools that were close by. And I just love the schools that my children attend. If you want to hear me, one thing that concerns me is if I hear someone talk about government schools when referring to our public schools, because they're anything but. They are our schools. And through the school board and the school board races, you have the opportunity to take possession of our schools. That's what we do through the school board. I think it's a deeply sacred responsibility, and I take it seriously. Thank you.
Okay, keep the mic there, and we'll start with Ada and go this way, the questions. So let's get into it. I'll tell you a couple of facts about what we're talking about. Alpine School District, one of the top 40, I think second in the nation in size. Huge school district. 93 total schools in the district, over 80, this is what the district sent out to each of us, each of their got, but over 84,000 students, and 1,221 daily bus runs. Anyway, pretty big district we're talking about. A lot of money, a lot of kids that are at stake in this decision tonight. Okay, let's jump into it. Great questions you've sent to me. Hopefully a lot of them I'll cover. If not, we'll start to address them. First question. If elected, who do you represent? Citizens of Orem or the Alpine School District? And we'll start on the end.
How long?
You have 1 minute to answer it, and then we'll go to the next.
There's no question about that. I just talked about ownership of schools. These are our schools, and I would represent my community. You have to understand also the dynamic of a board. I have no power by myself. I only have power in a group of 7, which means that not only do I have to be concerned about the students in my area, I have to be concerned about every student. It is a big district. 84,000 students weighs kind of heavily. We need to be mindful of every citizen. Definitely, I represent the citizens, the families, the students, and not the reverse.
15 seconds.
Speaking of large districts, there is a study that says it's not so much the size of your district as much as it is the socioeconomic health of your district. I want you to know that you have a fiscally sound district in the Alpine School District.
My introduction should answer that question for you. I am a parent-centered board member, and I will work for the voter. And I think that's an easy question to answer. I do want to speak to the size of the district, and I want to. The thing that I think has been problematic in Alpine School District is that there's so many levels of bureaucracy that solving problems becomes problematic. And I love the district that I work in. I think that we do a lot of great things. But I think the reason why you're seeing groups that are starting to say, I want to create my own district, is because we're not responding to their questions and we're not responding to their needs. And so as a board member, I want to reach out to those individuals and listen to those individuals and respond to their needs.
Thank you for the question. I think it's a great question.
We have seats up front. Please don't put any more up. We have 2 couches full of chairs.
Okay, so
You can sit on-
reset my time
10
here. Sorry.
seconds.
I'm sorry.
You're okay. So I think it's really important to represent the community and the families. I'm really interested in the power dynamics between the state school boards, our local school boards, the legislature, and cities, and I think that needs to be explored a little bit. And like Ada mentioned, as one vote of several, right? I think you have to balance. It's going to be a lot of persuasion and lobbying and trying to get other people's votes for things that you want to change or initiatives that you have. But I have been a member of this community. I live in the community. I have 3 children in the district. I taught at Mountain View for 26 years, and I would represent the parents and the community. Thank you.
I feel like that is an incredibly easy question to answer. I am a member of the school board if elected, but I'm elected by the parents, which means I represent the parents. I represent those who have elected me. And I feel like the school board currently has forgotten that. I feel like the school board currently doesn't actually represent the parents and what they want and what they're actually asking for. And that is a very, very important thing, because these kids are not just numbers. They're not just 84,000, 85,000 students. They are kids who are in a family, who belong to a family, who have parents who matter. And to me, it doesn't matter if I'm on the board or not, I am a parent, and if I am elected, I'm elected by parents. I'm elected by those who actually have a say
15 seconds.
and who want to be able to be heard and want to be able to be listened to. I do not feel like our current board actually represents our parents.
Okay, I'm changing my questions all around to reflect what your questions are. So, what is your opinion regarding the state officials with the override of Governor Cox's veto regarding transgenders competing in high school sports, which goes against those of the opposite biological sex? So let me rephrase that so it makes it more clear. What did he say? That the governor just vetoed a bill that would protect women, especially this is an issue with girls, so that girls that are biologically girls will not have to compete against guys that are biological guys that are competing as girls. So that was a bill that was supported by the state legislature. It was overturned by the governor, and then they vetoed his veto. So anyway, what is your opinion about, let's make this an easier question. What's your opinion about transgenders competing against girls in high school sports? And let's go ahead, we'll start right here and go, let's see. We started last time here. Okay, we'll start here.
How long?
Okay.
How long?
1 minute.
1 minute? Is everything 1 minute?
1 minute?
1 minute, yes, 1 minute.
Okay. Fabulous. So House Bill 11, I feel like our representatives represented the community very well. I feel like that the mayor, by overturning that and vetoing that, did not listen to the voice of the people. And I was actually just having a conversation with someone in the back. I was a state cross-country champion where I grew up. I in no way could have competed with the men, or the biological male, as a state cross-country champion. I was average when it came to men. There is no way that men and women can compete with each other and have it be equal. It's not possible. For me, I support girls, I support women who want to compete and want to do their best, who try their hardest, who put their heart and souls into everything. I support men who want to do that as well. I do not support the cross-mixing of either. I have a question. How come you never hear of girls competing as transgender males? How come you don't ever hear of that? Because it's not possible for them to win.
So this seems to be kind of a hot topic with the governor and the legislature, right? I don't know in a particular case where this would apply to anybody in Alpine currently with our sports, but I think it's coming, and so we do need to look at it. I am against having transgendered students compete. So a student that wants to compete against female students. I think it's primarily for me a safety issue with maybe the physicality or the size of the athlete. And there's some other issues, right? Changing rooms, all kinds of things. And I think it's important for Alpine to consider it. And I think this could be a local school decision, right? Instead of a state decision.
That's time.
In my introduction, I mentioned that I'm a school teacher. I did not mention that I've been a coach. I've been a wrestling coach for most of my career. I run the 2 largest wrestling tournaments in the state of Utah. One of them is a high school wrestling tournament. We bring in 80 teams from 8 different states. Wrestling is a very physical sport, And there are girls, when I was 12 years old, I wrestled a girl named Sherry Smewen from Vernal, Utah. And she was tough, and it was tough. But what happens is when that 12-year-old hits maturity, and that 12-year-old girl hits maturity, it's a different story. Haley Cox she is a national level girl wrestler who, when she got into high school, she couldn't earn a varsity spot. She couldn't earn a JV spot on her team. And so the physical differences are just obvious. The legislature made the right choice.
Thank you. I believe that this is an issue that is best handled on a local level, as Karsten mentioned. Currently, Alpine School District has the ability to handle these situations on a case-by-case basis, working directly with families, mothers and fathers, and they are the ones that inform the decision. My fear is that in taking this this stand, it's going to be like a lightning rod. It will attract lawsuits, as it has done in Idaho already. They are fighting this. And it will also make it so if a federal decision comes down that makes it impossible for us to do what we do now, which is to cater to the families and exactly what's best for their child. This is exactly what happened in the same-sex marriage issue, and it can happen with this one. Thank you.
This is a follow-up that I saw quite a few questions regarding this too. How would you advocate to protect girls from power imbalances and privacy breaches in spaces customarily reserved for their biological sex? And I've got bathrooms, showers, locker rooms, those kind of things. So not only are we talking about transgenders, but now the question about, can a boy go use the girls' restroom? And so let's start with Cole. And again, what would be your stand as a board member?
I do want to respond to one thing that Ada said is we open ourselves up to lawsuits. And if we made every decision based on whether or not we're going to get sued or not, there's a lot of opportunities that we're going to rob from our kids. We don't make decisions as to whether we're going to get sued or not. We make decisions based on what's best for our kids. And what's best for our kids is to make sure that they have a fair opportunity to compete. Notice that she didn't answer the question. She agrees with Governor Cox, and the legislature made the right decision. We need to make sure that we protect our girls and make sure that our girls have an opportunity to compete in a fair way. Now, to answer the question that was asked here, I think it's important to make sure we don't have a transgender or identity problem. We have a family problem, and it starts with, I said I'm a parent-centered board member. It starts with the family. The strength of Alpine School District is in the families, and we got to make sure we continue to listen to the family.
So I'm a parent. I have 3 children, 2 daughters that attend schools in Alpine School District. I want them to be able to use the locker room and the bathroom safely, right? Without feeling threatened or that someone is, you want that to be a safe experience for kids. I mean, their childhood, if you guys remember, is kind of awkward with all the hormones and changing that's happening anyway. So bathrooms are kind of, and locker rooms are kind of a touchy space anyway. And so we just need to make sure it's a safe space. And I think there's things that could happen locally at each school with principals on a case-by-case basis. But I think there's definite rules that need to be put in place. And I think there's some, like most businesses have done, there's you could make like a family or a separate changing room, right? There could be a space for people that need those facilities.
Yes, turn.
I absolutely appreciate Cole's comments, and I agree 100% with what he said. I think it's pretty obvious where I stand. I believe that women should be able to use the bathrooms in peace. Men should be able to use their bathrooms in peace. showers, locker rooms, anywhere should be a place where you can feel, I don't want to use the word safe, but you can feel like you can be secure. So I believe that if a person who is transgender or who has a sexual identity or has a sexual issue and the district is aware of it or the school is aware of it, that needs to be catered to as far as that person can then use the bathroom somewhere else. I have a big problem with districts that try to hide problems. There is a district that there has been a person who is a multiple offender, and the district did nothing about it. I have a problem with that. That is not okay, and I don't feel that's safe for my children or anybody else's children. Not okay with that.
Alpine School District currently builds its schools with at least one gender-neutral bathroom or facility. And these things, again, are handled on a case-by-case basis, working with the principal and with all the parties involved, including students and parents, to come to solutions. I think when you say it's a family issue, Cole, some families have this issue and it's not a matter of whether they're a good parent or not. These kids they exist. We can't say they don't exist. There are transgender, there's bisexual, there's homosexual kids. There are kids who I call it gender dysphoria. They exist and they deserve to not live in hell.
I do appreciate you calling me out on that, and I reflected on what I said, and I definitely don't want to be insensitive towards those kids. I have those kids in my classroom, and I can tell you those kids feel welcome in my classroom, and I recognize that we've got to treat those individuals, and we've got to make sure that they feel welcome in our schools, and we find a way to make sure that we nurture those students. The struggle is that we've got to find a way to balance protecting our girls and protecting our schools.
Okay. Let's see, who hasn't been first? Okay. I'm going to ask one more question, I want to go a different direction. So many of you are precinct chairs, I assume, that are here to decide how you're going to vote. A week from Saturday at the county convention, you will be endorsing one of these candidates, possibly. If they get 60% of the vote, you'll be endorsing them, which I believe is the first time we've ever done that in the Republican Party, endorsed a school board candidate, because it's a nonpartisan race. But
you can also vote to endorse nobody.
Or yes, thank you.
If nobody gets over 60%, the nobody line, then
correct. So if there's not a 60%, nobody will be endorsed. But so the question that some of you passed up to me is the county Republican platform. You know, if you're endorsing someone, so here's the one question. 60% vote by the Republican delegates, you will receive the party's endorsement. The county party's platform states that marriage is between a man and a woman. Do you agree? That shouldn't be a long question, but anyway.
That's not a school board question.
That's a question about endorsement. So the question is, are they going to endorse one of you as a candidate for the Republican Party? And they want to know, do you support the platform of the Republican Party? And so that's part of the platform.
A lot of that kind of shouldn't be part of it.
Pardon me?
That's crossing the line. I was at
You want to know their opinion.
So let me just.
That's part of the Republican platform.
That is
Education.
this is
It's not an education.
It's not a hard question, and then we'll go on to a different subject. I've had several of you ask that, and I'm trying to recognize all the questions that are coming in. So that's part of the Republican Party platform. So just give us your honest answer, and we're going to go in a different direction.
So I went to the, I've been pretty active in the Republican Party where I live, in the Suncrest area, and then now over in the Park area. And I have been a county delegate before, and my wife's a county delegate this time. And I, as just a local member of the Republican Party, endorse, I feel comfortable with the Republican Party principles and platform. I'm conservative. I talk business and marketing. I like capitalism. I'm in favor of limited government, and I think it's an important issue.
Can we clarify that? Because that's not all it says. The Utah County Republican platform says, we believe that marriage consists only of a legal union between a man and a woman, and that no other domestic union should be recognized as a marriage or given the same or substantial equal legal effect.
Thank you.
That makes a big difference.
Okay.
Just the first part.
So I'll go with that. I've just taken what I've read, and so do you want to change your?
No, I feel
opinion?
comfortable with,
Okay.
with
We'll
the
go. Thank
Utah
you. Well, thanks for the
Republican
clarification.
platform.
Okay.
I want to address you, Aaron. That changed, didn't it?
It did not.
So did it,
It was
at the
voted
central?
on, and I think it will be voted on again at county convention.
Okay, so the executive committee has voted on it, and the central committee has not?
The central committee voted on it, it didn't pass, the central committee will vote on it again.
Okay, so there is a proposal right now to update that particular part of the platform. I can tell you that I was on the executive committee of the Utah County Republican Party. I've sat in those meetings where we discussed that particular definition, and I would vote for the new proposal, which is a lot more open and a lot more broad. I believe in the traditional family, but I also believe that we have a lot of conservative people who have alternative lifestyles, and I think we should welcome them into our party.
Can I okay, the vote at the meeting was 55 to 45 to change it, and you need 2/3. And so it didn't pass because of that.
Okay. Let's finish that question, we're going to call that a different question.
I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I espouse the same views that are taught in my church. I also am the parent of a bisexual daughter who has married her best friend. They are part of our family. They will remain a part of our family. Do I approve of what their choice is? No, we do not. But we were there as her parents, and she is alive today. And she is thriving. She is a contributing member of the community, as is her sweet friend. Thank you.
That's a really hard question to answer publicly, because I have to divide, anyway, okay, let me start over. I believe that happiness is most likely to be achieved and founded upon the principles of Jesus Christ. The principles of Jesus Christ lead to a happy family. They lead to happiness. They lead to more centered families, families that can thrive, families that do good, and that is likely to be found upon men and women being married to each other. We've seen this in psychology, we've seen this in studies, we've seen this in numerous things. Does that mean we don't love those and want to welcome those? No. That just means that we've seen that psychologically, socially, it is better for families to have a male and female in their lives who are their parents, who support them and love them. I support the party. I support it as it currently stands.
Should we try an easier question now?
Hey, can I ask Aaron?
BYU or Utah?
Aaron, do you have the updated proposed change so that?
You know what?
No, we can talk about it later though, after the meeting.
All right.
I appreciate it, we're going in a different direction, because I'm trying to keep this going here. Feasibility study, that's on a lot of people's minds. There's questions what that is, what's going on. Orem City Council voted 7-0 in favor of a feasibility study regarding the splitting of Orem from the Alpine School District. And part of their study, I think, involves children, what's best for children, what's best for teachers, what's best for their education, what's best financially. So this is a feasibility study that the city council has voted on to do. They're in the process of doing that right now. Who's first? Is Cole, have you been first yet?
I'll go first, sure.
Okay, Cole, let's start with Cole, then we'll do A, and then we'll come down this way. How's that?
Yeah. One of the mantras of Alpine School District, I've heard this for a really long time over and over again, is make data-driven decisions, okay? And how can you make decisions without the data? And And I know that there's going to be individuals say, well, we have the data. No, what we have is we have an administrator from Alpine School District that's gathered their own data. And we all have watched over the last couple of years how data can be skewed. So I don't have an answer as to whether or not it's a good thing for the city of Orem to separate and create their own school district. The reason why is because I have not seen the data. Let's allow the study to move forward. Let's allow that independent party to conduct the research, and then let's look at the data and let's make decisions based on that data. I think it's irresponsible to simply take the word of one administrator. Now, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Rob Smith. I think he's awesome. But let's look at what that independent study says.
This is a business administrator who has earned AAA ratings, bond ratings for the last, I don't know how many years. Just last night announced that he has again been awarded a transparency in reporting. Sorry, I'm getting a little passionate. This is available to everyone. The books are open in the Alpine School District. You can see it for yourself. I wish that the City Council, and I've said this before, had done a feasibility study before the feasibility study. Alpine School District has looked at this question. I think there is no question a smaller school district will make your taxes go up. Our estimate, my personal estimate, is 36%, and your services will go down.
So I just want to touch back on the other questions for a second. I think that the process for change for the Republican platform is driven by the executive board and those members in us that get involved and vote. So as I said, if I support the local platform and the platform changes, then if I'm opposed, then it's my duty to argue against that and vote against that. So this is a really important issue. I've been a teacher for 26 years in the Alpine School District. I had never heard that the state school board had come to Alpine and asked them to do their own internal study if it's ready to split or not. Have you guys heard that before? So this was news to me, and I think it's smart to get data and look at the feasibility, and then, like Cole mentioned, just once you have the data, you can make better decisions, right? And so I'm really in favor of getting information and then making informed decisions.
I absolutely support this study to find out if it's feasible or not. I also find it really interesting that a lot of Orem's money doesn't stay in Orem. So, with that thought, to say that the 30% difference, I don't think that's true at all. I think a lot of our money gets spent and wasted, and it would be really interesting to see how a study actually turned out. And I think it does need to be third party. It shouldn't be done by a certain person or certain entity. Alpine School District has a lot of power, has a lot of influence, and it is a very, very big district. So a feasibility study of it would be absolutely ideal.
Rebuttal, please.
You still have 23 seconds.
Okay.
So I also really truly believe that if we did a feasibility study and Orem decided that it was a good thing to do, we could probably see where a lot of our money has been wasted, where we've had a lot of fiscal irresponsibility, and then that way we could actually cater to the students that we need to cater to and help them thrive in a way that they could thrive even better. Alpine, Nebo, all of them are doing great.
So I'll give you, are you
I'm
regarding what you
correcting
said?
some information. Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to do that too.
Well,
If you
let
get
me ask
through
you
I'll
a
take
question.
that as well. I was the first.
Okay.
I need to respond, first of all.
Well, if you're responding, I'll let Ellen respond, but I'll give you a different question to respond.
I'm just responding to Jody.
Did she have a rebuttal to what you said, or?
She didn't call you out or in
Well, she
any way.
looked over at me and pointed at me, so I'm responding.
Well, if you're responding, I'll let everybody have another.
Okay.
No, you know what? Let's go to a different question. Because I didn't hear
I'm
her say.
okay with a
I
30-second
really would
response.
like
I
to
think it's an
respond.
important issue. I think
Yeah, this is
it's one of the biggest
Go ahead.
issues in our.
If you wanted to respond, we'll let everybody respond to your response. Okay, here we go.
Jody said that there's more money pushed out of Orem than comes in. Let me tell you that Orem is in for a big wake-up call when the rest of the district understands how much money is pushed into Orem through Title I schools, through compensation. We have low enrollments that don't sustain a full curriculum in our high schools. They have to supplement. Is my mic on? They have to supplement it. And in addition, we have a number of ineligible bus routes, and we get board voted FTEs to reduce our class size. A lot of money gets pushed into Orem, and when the rest of the district realizes it, we may be in trouble.
30 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I want you to recognize is that there's only one source that AO will listen to, and it's Rob Smith. And I think Rob is a genius. I do. I spent 3 months doing an administrative internship and worked with Rob Smith directly, and I think he's a brilliant administrator. But if you listen to the same news channel day after day after day, and you get one perspective, and you don't get out and you don't ask the Orem City Council what they're learning from their study, then you're going to keep making the same decisions.
That's time.
So I'll just reiterate, I think it's important to get the accurate data and then see what the numbers say. I've been in the district 26 years. I see there's some areas where maybe the money could be reallocated or better spent.
10 seconds.
And I think it's important, if the district's gonna float another bond, just for the sake of Orem City having this data to advocate for bonds, funds coming to Orem would be smart.
So I've actually asked this question to a lot of parents because if elected, I represent you. Every single parent has told me they want the study done. I have not had one parent that said they don't want the study done. I think that's a big thing. I think that's huge. If you are saying you want it done, it needs to be done. And then whatever the results are, that needs to be listened to, regardless of what somebody else says. The independent study is what's going to matter.
Can I have a rebuttal from Colt?
No.
That was already a rebuttal.
Hang on, different question. We'll keep on the same topic, but we'll circle around to a different question. This is a number of questions sound like this one. A lot of information is being talked about, but the study hasn't started. Do you think it's appropriate to discuss issues without the facts from the independent study? I think we've heard that, but let's go ahead. Carl, start that one.
Yeah, so I think this is, it's really interesting because it's a little bit premature, right? The Orem City, the Orem City Council and the mayor represents their voters. They passed unanimously 7-0 their taxpayer money to do a study. Who's the Alpine School District to question the Orem City's right to do that, right? I think if the voters are unhappy with that budget, they'll let the city council know, right? So I think it's appropriate that Orem City, the people that we vote to support, to run the city, have the right to vote for a study, and they should, because the relationship between cities and school districts needs to be clarified. And so I think it's an important issue. I do think the reaction from the school district, kind of a knee-jerk one, to just say, oh, there's no way, it's impossible to split, right? Before we have the data, is a little bit premature.
Okay, go this way. We'll go Jody, then we'll go to
I believe the data is very, very, very important. But the reason why the suggestion to even investigate using data has been had is because we have seen where Alpine School District has not actually reasonably used its funds. We have seen where Alpine School District has not actually catered to its students or done things that are good, and it is just too big. There is a reason why there is even a suggestion for it to happen. So yes, it is premature to discuss it before we even have the data, but there's a reason why we're saying, hey, we need the data to happen. So yes, we need to discuss it, and it'll be interesting to see the results, and after the results happen, that's when we can actually make some serious, strong decisions. So yes, we need to discuss it, but it's also important to recognize the results are what's going to matter.
Okay, thank you, Cole.
I think you need to realize that the reactions that we've seen are not Alpine School District driven. They are parent driven, concerned parents, because they know what's good for their schools and what's good for their students. My concern arose when I looked on the frequently asked questions page of the city of Orem, And one of the questions that they put there was, will this affect the employment of Alpine School District employments? Their answer was no, that it would remain the same. They would have their same pay, and everything would be just fine. But that is not the truth. And I had a struggle to get that corrected. And even today, it is still hidden behind a link. The guarantee is only for 1 year, and teachers are not going to stay put if they know that their salaries and their benefits are only guaranteed for 1 year.
This is where I mentioned earlier, parent-driven, and I was hoping that this thing would come out. Parent-driven and listening to the constituents. I talked with city council members. I've talked with them one-on-one, and those city council members told me why they're voting. In that case, I asked every single city council member that I talked to, I asked them, has anyone from the board reached out to you and talked to you about this? None of them had talked to a current board member about this change. And they are not getting into the trenches, talking to those council members about why you want to conduct this study. And that's important for them to understand. They're listening to one side.
I must realize.
I'm sorry, we could spend.
That is absolutely false.
Okay, let's keep going.
I cannot.
I'm the moderator. Let me keep going here. There's a lot more questions I have.
Wasn't a personal attack.
You'll get a closing.
It was a personal attack.
You'll get a
I'm
closing
sorry.
statement.
I have reached out to every single city council board member. I have attached to that email the page that I have over there on my table, collecting the facts that I have collected, and I have reached out to board members, and I appreciate those that have reached out to me. Debbie LeRae and Lene Millet, I've had extensive conversations with them. I've talked with Tom McDonald, and he has made appointments with to be in the district to talk with Rob Smith along with Jeff Lamson. I have reached out to every city councilman. I've reached out to, I thought, was a manager or some kind of a handler to talk to the mayor and to you, Terry, and to David. And
have you talked to Terry?
He told me
we're over time.
no.
That was time.
He told me
you got to give equal time.
Quiet.
He told me in no uncertain terms that I was not going to talk to the mayor. And this afternoon at 3 o'clock, Sarah Hacken had an appointment with the mayor to which I was uninvited.
Clarify that was not Terry that said that.
Go to a different.
Clarify who said that.
So, I'm the moderator, I'm not gonna get involved with, that's not all accurate, but I'm the moderator, so that's not where I'm going.
Thank you.
So, no, let's keep going, there's a lot of great questions here. Cole, did you respond? Or are you good?
You're good.
I'm good.
Okay, listen, thank you, listen, okay. CRT has been something that a lot of you asked me about, and it's a bigger question than just that. It's controlling what's being taught in the classroom. As a parent, do you have any say-so? What if there's things being taught, and someone help me if I'm not saying this correctly right, but if there's things being taught that you're uncomfortable with as a parent, what rights do you have if any? So let's see, who has it? Cole, have you been first? Go ahead.
First a lot, but I'll go first.
Okay, Ada, go ahead, you start this one.
Okay, this is a question about curriculum control, and yeah.
CRT, other things that parents are concerned about, which they're having their kids come home with paper about.
Right. It's hard to know where to begin here, but according to Senate Resolution 901, we are told that, and I agree totally with this, that no child should be made to feel inferior or less than for who they are, their ethnic background, that we have dignity and respect for every student. With that said, CRT is, I guess I want to back up here. I think that anytime there's a problem, if a parent has a problem with what's taught in their schools, they have the absolute right to bring it to our attention, as has been done, and that we have the right and responsibility to respond.
But you better be careful or they might criminally charge you after. Just saying.
I am gonna follow up on one thing. We do have the wife of the mayor of Orem here, and we have a city council member, and ask them if what I said is true. CRT is an ideology that is infiltrating into our schools, and it's subtle. And you'll have individuals in education who will tell you it's not happening in Alpine School District. It is happening in Alpine School District, and it's subtle, and it's hard to recognize. I had a business leadership teacher come to me the other day, and he said, look at what's been added to my curriculum in business leadership. And he showed me, and he said, I said, look, you've got a business background, I got a business background. I want you to post that on social media and ask any businessman if they've ever heard of that principle in the business world. And he did, and no businessmen have heard of that. What was it? It was ideas of socialism seeping into our curriculum, that it's CRT coded in a different way.
So I think what happens sometimes is we have direction from the state and our school district on the curriculum we're supposed to teach, but sometimes some teachers, when the door closes, right, might have a personal bias that comes out in the classroom. And it surprised me that, what was it, Lehigh High School? Where the teacher was videotaped with some kind of crazy thoughts and language that came out, and then let go from the district. But that surprised me because I've been in the classroom 26 years, and I try to teach the curriculum, right? And I haven't heard of anyone teaching CRT. In my experience, it hasn't happened at Mountain View that I'm aware of. I feel like I would hear that being in the schools, talking to students frequently all day. So it's something we need to think about and address.
I could go on for a very, very long time about this subject. I'm going to try and stick to my bullet points. CRT is taught in our schools. It is. It's taught through social emotional learning classes. It's taught through the opportunities of people saying, go look at yourself and see why you're privileged. Go look at yourself and see why you're different than your black student, or your Mexican, or your Ecuadorian, or your Chinese. It is taught. Anything that's divisive, that relates to race, that relates to the skin color, isn't necessarily going to be important in our schools, and it should not be taught. Alpine School District doesn't listen. In fact, they shut parents out of school boards. I was one of those parents who had the doors closed. Alpine School District violated the open laws. Alpine School District did not listen to the parents when we asked for curriculum, when we asked for things. So no, they don't listen. The teacher in Lehigh was complained about for 8 years, and the district didn't listen. 8 years. Yes, critical race theory and those ideologies and those indoctrinations are infiltrating our schools.
I'm going to ask one more question, then I'm going to open it up for you to ask questions, because I didn't hit all your questions. So the last, and some of the questions I've been sharing, hopefully I'm following what you're asking me to do. But last one, how do you protect children from sexually explicit material in the school library? Or is that not your role as a school board member, or something you care about, or should you even be involved with that? This is, again, so sexually explicit material in a library that's in front of children. Let's see.
Okay.
I've completely lost it first, so go ahead.
I'm not even sure who does anymore either. So there have been actually a lot of interesting conversations regarding this. The Alpine School Board can have curriculum based, and it can have policies, and it can have all those amazing things, and it should. There have been teachers who have asked students to read books that are explicitly pornographic, that literally talk about a woman being raped and describe it, that talk about, Timmy is a 6-year-old and Timmy wants to touch somebody's penis. Excuse me, I am not okay with my 5-year-old reading that book. I'm not okay with my 10-year-old reading the book. I am not okay reading that book myself. That's not a book I want around. So we absolutely should not have books that are going to be doing those kind of things to our children in school libraries. This sexualization of children needs to stop. It needs to stop.
I think this is a really good question. And I think it's not a new question, right? Books have been banned since books have been invented, right? And I think what needs to happen is the school needs to listen to parents and the community, right? And the budget needs to follow those kinds of community input. The problem I think we're having is our community is polarized, right? Our community has different opinions. Not everybody is the same. That would be kind of boring. But, so how do you value and respect everybody's difference of opinions on whether, like, we probably would disagree on which books should be banned, right? And so it becomes an issue of hiring smart people, having policies, listening to parents, and taking appropriate action. And I think no one's set out. I don't think there's an agenda to sexualize our kids at a young age. But if it is, it needs to be addressed.
Yeah, there is.
So.
I am an English education major, and I've sat in classes and we've talked about the banning of books. You read Fahrenheit 451 and you talk about the banning of books and the burning of materials. And we've watched this the past 2 years. We've watched censorship take place, right? And I'm going to stand here and I'm going to tell you I'm against censorship for adults. Okay, and I think that's the key. You've got to recognize that the brain develops throughout time, and their brains are not ready to process certain material at certain ages. And so if we're exposing young children to certain materials at a younger age, they're not ready to process that information. So am I for checking that we have age-appropriate books in our libraries and in our schools? Absolutely.
I support the right of parents and of the public to have some, the schools should reflect the values of the community in which they live. And so we have processes, you might be aware of House Bill 374, which passed, and we have a responsibility to uphold that law, which we will. Alpine School District just recently hired a full-time media director. Her name is Stephanie Jones, and her task, well, there's a task force meeting with parents included this week, beginning this week, which will outline the responsibilities of what does a book challenge look like? How do we curate a library? We are actively involving parents in this whole process, and yes, I think this is part of our stewardship over our schools, to make sure that our libraries are safe places for our children. So many of them use it as a haven.
Okay, I told you I was going to open it up. Go ahead and keep it. I was going to open it up for questions. I've got one more that a bunch of you asked that I will bring up so it gets covered, and then we'll open it up. Mountain View High School. And by the way, how many of your children go to Mountain View? Probably nearly everybody here, I would assume. So your new principal is sitting right here, Mr. Henshaw, and you're going to be lucky to have him, by the way. Great guy. So I've known him when my grandkids have been at other schools he's been to. So he's not part of this question. He's brand new. You start in a month or two? Anyway, so, or whatever. So this is not directed towards him. But this is an issue I'd like to hear, and as some of you have asked me to ask, there were some allegations at Mountain View High School regarding racial issues, lack of support for some of these racial situations, and then the concern was a lack of support from the school and district officials and school board members. So that's what I'm hearing. I'd like to hear the response as a school board member. How would you address that? You know, if someone came to you, Mountain View is part of your area, someone comes to you with these allegations of, I just mentioned. So let's start, Ada, yeah.
I'd love to. I looked up in my email when I first heard of this issue. I think it was July of 2020. A school board member's role is not to insert themselves into every controversy. A school board member's role is to direct them to the people who have that responsibility to investigate and to resolve those issues. The reason a school board member cannot insert herself or himself is that the complainants in the case, if they so choose, can appeal to the board for a final decision. In that case, a board member has to be unbiased and has to have fresh eyes on the information. For that reason, at that very first email, I told the parties that I needed to remove myself from the process and that they would have to follow procedures. And if I had to be involved, great, I would look at it with fresh, unbiased eyes.
This is an important issue, and I think, again, we're seeing who the incumbent works for, the district. I have personally reached out to the administrator that was directly involved in that, and I have personally reached out to a parent who was directly involved in that. Both of them said, had a board member reached out to us, both of them on both sides said, and worked to resolve this, this could have been dealt with at a school level. Instead, the Office of Civil Rights is involved in this case. If this would have been, if leadership would have moved forward and it would have been taken care of, you're asking Alpine School District administrators to investigate themselves, is what happened. And so who do the parents turn to? You represent those people. You're the board member. And if you represent those people, that's who you should be talking to. And those people were not represented by their board member, and that's why there is an Office of Civil Rights lawsuit against Mountain View High School.
So this is an important issue for Mountain View. Accusations of racial treatment and parents and children that felt treated unfairly. I've been a teacher at Mountain View for 25 years, and it's a racially diverse school, and kids get along, and it's awesome. And I don't think this one incident is representative of a pattern, and I don't think it's our community. We're a very loving and accepting high school. There's a really good culture at Mountain View. My kids go to Mountain View. They have friends. It's great. It's an awesome place. And I think the school board is a little bit torn, but I agree. I know Mike May, the district athletic office, was involved in the investigation. This could have probably been handled better, and before bringing in the federal government and the Office of Civil Rights, right? And this should be a case study for us to study and learn from.
I'm going to take a different spin on this. My husband and I are small business owners. We run a construction company. And I have learned the amazing importance of listening, understanding, and validating somebody's concerns. I have learned the absolute responsibility that we have to hear all sides of every situation. I feel like, as a board member, had a parent reached out to me in this situation, had a parent specifically asked me for help, I would be eager to hear every side of the story, every side of the situation, with all situations of accusations that are in our schools. Every single situation needs to be heard, listened to, and actually paid attention to. I feel like it tried to be swept under the rug instead of actually being heard.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to open it up for.
You don't want to.
Well,
I think it's fair. He mentioned incumbent, so if she wants it.
Okay.
I believe that, Mountain View High School is the most diverse high school in Alpine School District. I am so proud of our kids who make it a wonderful place where they treat each other with love and respect. I've appreciated the good things that have come out of this situation. I was in the first two meetings of the council where they invited Kyle Reyes to come in and help them with their diversity issues. I think Mountain View High School is in a position to lead out in this area of treating kids with respect. They are awesome kids, Karsten, I know they are. And I think it behooves them, the adults around them, to exemplify, especially in our sports program, hard work,
30 seconds.
fair competition, and how to resolve conflicts in a productive way. I don't think that was exemplified in this case.
Okay, we're gonna ask questions, yes.
Ada,
So we're gonna start, this is gonna start with the questions, correct?
Gotcha, yep.
And so, you'll ask a question, will be the same thing, we'll have 1 minute to respond, everybody can respond to the question, no matter who you're asking it to.
Yep.
So, okay.
Ada, you had said earlier that you feel like you're an advocate for the people to come forward and voice their objections and concerns to the board. So for you specifically, and then for you as a broad panel, we have seen time and time again school board meetings in Alpine and others across our state lock out parents, charge them with disorderly conduct. This does not seem like it matches your vocabulary of being there and listening to parents. With that being said, I know that sometimes that means you have to listen to the things that are hard.
Thank you for this chance to respond. After the pandemic kind of hit, our school board meetings became kind of charged. We had to set up certain rules like every other organization in this state. And in order for the meetings to be conducted in an orderly fashion, there had to be some restrictions. Some people were not willing to live by those restrictions or agree to them. And the American Fork Police had to be called in several times. They got tired of being called in, and they said to the district, either we're going to have to start arresting people or you have to close your meeting. That's kind of the position we got into. We did not want to arrest people. The American Fork Police did not want to arrest people. And so we went to try these options of virtual meetings, closed meetings. We learned some things, and I want to tell.
What's time?
Okay.
Do you want me to? This is important, but I'll.
So,
somebody might mention you.
1 minute.
I was one of those parents outside with many of you that are here, and I stood outside on those steps and recognizing I'm also an employee of Alpine School District, okay? And I was there as a parent, and it was not in my contract time, and I was representing other parents and standing with other parents. And it's COVID, you can make all kinds of excuses. This is the biggest thing that bothers me about what happened in Alpine School District. They kept pointing the finger at the Board of Health, the Utah County Board of Health, Board of Health, Board of Health. So what did I do? I went to a Utah County Board of Health board meeting, and guess who was on the Utah County Board of Health board? Our superintendent, you know? And they're pointing the finger at them and saying, it's the Board of Health, the Board of Health. And I asked 5 different principals, did you know he was on the Board of Health? Not one principal knew that he was on the Board of Health. So we're pointing our finger over here and not taking responsibility for those choices. Data-driven decisions. We got to make data-driven decisions. And the data was telling us, let the public in to listen.
So I think this is an interesting situation, right? We had a politically charged environment where some parents and the school board probably could have done things differently, right? And in hindsight, maybe wish that they would have, and maybe even the city of American Fork. And it comes down to really communication, right? One of the parents that was there that was locked out told me they didn't even know there was a Zoom meeting option, right? So they didn't get the message. So the information about how to participate didn't get to the people that wanted to participate, right? And it caused this situation, and there were some unfortunate events. But I do think it underlies an important issue of that school districts have to allow and and be open to more parent involvement. I think we're gonna see more parent involvement to come in this politically charged atmosphere, and we have to figure out ways to communicate and make teamwork happen.
So the night in question that everybody is talking about, that Cole is talking about, and myself is going to address, was April 27th. I was also there that night. I was there with my 4 children out in the cold because I wasn't able to attend. And so to say that we aren't represented by the voice that we're not actually listening to, I have experienced that myself. I have called the board, I have emailed the board, I have done things for the board also, and have not received responses, have been told, oh, I hear you. No, you don't. I'm sorry, you don't. You don't hear me. You're not listening to what I am asking for as a parent. You're not listening to what 100 of us parents who were locked out that night wanted to have. So it's interesting to me because on the Alpine School District website, it says that they are open to parents, they listen to parents, they're advocates for parents. I personally have not seen that. I personally have not witnessed that for myself. And my own experience, it might be unique, I don't know. But according to me and hundreds of other parents, it's not unique.
Rebecca? I think we have to recognize that just because you don't get what you wanted does not mean that you were not heard. That is not the case. Apparently, nobody is recognizing that this meeting was posted, all the information was posted on the front door that you were knocking on for, I think it was 10 minutes. Or
a minute and 18 seconds.
Sorry, whatever.
1 minute and 18 seconds.
Thank you.
A total.
Anyway,
That's time.
it was posted, and
That's 30
apparently
seconds.
everybody else got the word. There was Zoom participation. There were people there outside the building who were able to participate
time.
via Zoom.
The Zoom didn't work, sorry.
Can I tell you 2 things we learned?
We're over time.
Okay, let's go to the next question.
Oh, please, may I respond, please?
Yes. Yes.
Are you willing to forego federal funding in order to respond to the constituency's desires? That's what I want to know. Are you willing to separate from federal funding in order to change the direction a lot of the initiatives have taken us over the
You
last...
start who you want to go first.
Let's start here, Jody.
Fabulous. I would love to answer that question. Real fast, I want to point out that Attorney General's office actually recognized that they did violate the closed or the open meeting laws. It was a violation.
I was going to ask.
So that was a violation. So for them to say they posted it and that everybody knew, not true. Anyway, so to bring up to your question, yes, I believe our children are so important that we should not be. I don't want to speak vulgarly, but we should not be using them as money. You know, there are professions that get used as money, and that's not okay. And my child is not of that profession. My child is not a number. My child is not somebody who is going to be worth a certain value. So we didn't get federal fund, or if we didn't, the board claims that they were doing it for federal funding. Masks, vaccines, all those things were federal funded. I'm sorry, you're taking my rights as a parent, my medical rights as a parent, for federal funding. I'm not okay with that. So no, I will not take federal funding if it violates the morality of my children, if it violates the morality of my sacred duty to my parents and to those who I represent, because my children are more important than federal funding.
So this is a really important issue, and I hope we all kind of understand this. So the federal government does support schools, depending on the budget, like special education or career and technical education that I teach in, business and marketing and agriculture and all the kind of hands-on classes. Those classes are more expensive. And there's some Carl Perkins federal funds, and generally speaking, in block grants, the local, state, and districts get to decide and implement those programs under a state board of review. So I think just saying no to all federal funding you need to be careful, right? It's more nuanced because there's a lot of federal funding that doesn't come with handcuffs, that's like local block grant. Kind of like the community council with state trust lands, like those are local decisions, right? And I think each school needs to cater to their student body. So I think I would feel comfortable making that a local decision, right? And I think we need to be careful because it's not just, hey, let's just reject all federal funding. There's lots of different pots of money and where it goes.
When one of the things I think is important as a school teacher is make friends with the right people, custodians, the secretaries, and the lunch ladies, okay? and I'm good friends with the lunch ladies. I go into the lunchroom every day and I help them for about 5 to 10 minutes, and I'll help them in the checkout line. The kids will come through. Do you parents know that all children in Alpine School District are still getting free lunch? The family that owns a $10 million home is getting free lunch. Why? Because federal dollars came in to our district to help. And now look, do I believe in a free lunch program? And do I think there are kids out there that need free lunch? Absolutely. But we're programming free stuff, and we're implementing those ideas of socialism that everybody gets free stuff. And this is where we've got to recognize, look, we can't be taking those federal funds just because it's convenient in COVID times.
Hang on one second.
I have a question.
Yeah.
For teachers.
Oh,
you're doing a rebuttal? Oh. Oh, I thought, my bad.
It's okay, you're keeping the
There's so much talking, yeah. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I think Carson has a clear understanding of what federal dollars means. They are the Title I for the disadvantaged. There's a McKinney-Vento for the homeless, and there's other ones for Native Americans, and there's CTE program. It amounts to currently about 8% of our budget. And so I think we have to say, what are we giving up when we do that? We paid to the federal government, and I think we deserve something back from them. On the other hand, I'm in agreement. When the federal government feeds your child 2 out of 3 meals a day, my alarm bells go off. I'm just not quite sure that's the right thing to do, especially when there's no economic need. I think we need to back off of that program, especially because our free and reduced lunch is supposed to identify who the Title I students are, and right now that is totally confused.
I had a question. Do you support microaggression training for teachers and students?
Okay, who do you want to start with that?
Doesn't matter to me.
Say that louder. I don't think anybody else can hear it in the back.
Microaggression training for teachers and students. Do you support it?
You want to tell us what that means?
It's part of the diversity, equity, inclusion stuff that's been creeping in. It's
taught at Jordan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jordan School District does.
Okay. Okay. Who do you want to start? We'll let you call on.
I'll start.
Go ahead.
Okay.
One of the things that I keep recognizing, I'm a proud father. I got 5 kids of my own. I've got 4 stepkids, and I'm a proud. I got my son up here. He's still a trooper, and I asked him to Facebook Live it, and he's up there doing that for me, and I appreciate that. But I have a daughter also at BYU, and she's a dancer at BYU. She's a Cougarette. Proud of that, and I'm very excited about that. As a Cougarette, Abby has been forced to do diversity training and what you're talking about, and she's being taught that she should feel guilty for who she is. She should feel guilty for her ancestors and some of the actions they took, and that's it's divisive. And I recognize that if you look at the Cougarettes, it's an all-white girl team, and I recognize that the new coaches there are saying, look, we want to be able to recruit girls and go out and try to find some girls and create some diversity on our team. But they show up, they try out, they can dance, they make the team.
That's nice.
And so
let's go Ada, and then we'll come down this way.
I kind of have a unique background on this. I have to show my age, but I graduated high school. My graduating class was the first to graduate from K-12 integrated. And in my first elementary years, there was only one black family that had the courage to send their daughter to school, even though they could have integrated sooner. Only one had the courage to do that. And she was my friend, Willie East Johnson. Our little town fought hard to integrate our schools, and it was a battle. It was an integration of cultures. It was an integration of language. For a while, we had 2 prom queens. For a while, we had, so we had to make some rules about it. But we've made progress, and I think we need to recognize that progress and not go back. I don't want to go back there. I think we've fought hard enough for what we've got.
I absolutely believe that everybody needs to feel comfortable. Everybody needs to feel like they can learn in an environment where they are able to thrive. I believe teachers need to be teachers. I do not believe that teachers need to be psychologists. I do not believe that teachers need to be trained how to spot Mikey talking about this and that or the other, and I believe we are complicating teachers. We're complicating schools. We're complicating kids. It needs to go back to being simple. It needs to go back to where a math teacher could teach math, where a science teacher could teach science. And this microaggression training is, I feel like it's actually making things more complicated, and it's actually bringing more division, and it's bringing more opportunity for people to have issues that wouldn't have otherwise existed, because now it's putting up hurdles.
Thanks for answering that question. I think it's a really important question. Obviously, we want to provide a safe learning environment. So what does that mean, right? In a public school setting with people with different points of view and different perspectives, how do you have a safe learning environment, right? And what I think we've maybe gone too far, the pendulum has swung, right? Where you can't make jokes, or like you can't tease someone, or so we want a safe learning environment. We want social and emotional learning. We want people to feel comfortable on Maslow's hierarchy of needs so they can focus on learning. But have we become too politically correct, right? So it's a very important issue. It's something we need to, I think, that the district is aware of. And to my knowledge, I haven't had to go to any of those trainings. So I don't think the district is going down that pathway. And I think that's probably the smart choice.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question.
My kids were attending Hillcrest Elementary when the school district made a decision. So my children were attending Hillcrest Elementary when the school board voted and decided to close the school down about 2 years ago. And we were told it was a really frustrating process as parents to try to advocate to try to keep the neighborhood school open, and we were told a variety of reasons why they wanted to close it, but they and told the benefit, it was closed and it's consolidated and a bigger school was built, and they said we're trying to tell us the importance of the bigger building. Since then, we've seen 2 other schools in Orem close. We've seen Geneva Elementary close. We've seen Polaris High School close. So there's 3 in the last couple of years. And I know that there's several more in Orem that are Sharon and others that they've been talking about closing. What's your vision for schools in Orem about how important is it to try to keep these neighborhood schools open? How important is a neighborhood school?
Who do you want to have start?
I don't know. Who would anyone want to start with that first?
Okay.
As I said, I think neighborhood schools are important. I chose the place I live because of the schools in the area. I also think that it's important that our children have every opportunity available to them, which includes what we call the Ready Classroom, which is what the Alpine School District is working on, a place where your students will have the technology and skills that they need when they graduate. I want them to live in safe schools. Right now, 2 of our Orem elementary schools do not pass FEMA's test for earthquake safety. They must be replaced, or we're going to get sued. They must be replaced. We cannot keep schools which on the average cost $1,000 more per student than any other student than the rest of the district. I, as a board member, cannot consciously, with good conscience, keep those kinds of schools going for in perpetuity. if they're not cost effective, and if they're not giving state-of-the-art education to our kids, I don't think they're serving us well. In addition, the number of choices that our children have in those schools diminishes because their enrollment is low.
Time.
One of the things I think is important to admit and recognize is high schools are different than elementary schools, are different than junior highs, and you can't treat all schools the same. High school kids versus elementary school, schools, and we're consistently, every definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And we talk about the same issues of classroom size and teacher salaries over and over again, and we have an opportunity to reduce classroom size and we don't do it. I think closing neighborhood schools is a mistake, especially at the elementary level. If you have a smaller school, let that school be a smaller school and allow classroom sizes to be reduced because that school is a smaller school. I think it's a mistake to close elementary neighborhood schools.
So this is a really important question, and I see both sides to this issue. As a parent, if my kids were going to a school that was on the chopping block, right, of getting closed, and they had to go to a school that was farther away, I think that would suck, right? And but on the other hand, if the demographics of Orem are changing, like we're aging in Orem, right, and there's less kids, and there's these schools that were built for bigger numbers, then it doesn't make financial sense to me to have all the teachers there and like very small class sizes in one area of the school district, and then Lehigh and Saratoga, they have 40 kids in a class, right? But we're paying the teachers the same. So we have a school that has 20 kids and a school that has 40. Like it doesn't seem fair to me. But having said that, I think there's some creative things we could have done, whether that's online education or some local choices, and busing and more community communication, right? If we said, hey, here are the numbers, what would you do if you were the superintendent, right? And instead of, hey, this is what's going to happen.
I have a very unique perspective on this one because I am in the community where the school is close. My Suncrest is my area, and it's where I live. And I have heard from countless parents in my area who are so devastated because now the kids who went to Geneva are going to their schools, and their school has tanked. Their classroom sizes, their rowdiness, the just everything. Teachers are so unhappy, they're checked out. They are miserable. And I feel like school closure needs to be taken extremely seriously. And it needs to be actually researched. And instead of just a shoot from the hip, let's try closing this school, maybe try something different, look outside of the box, just like it was said. Look outside the box and how can we solve this? How can this actually be something we should look at? And does the school deserve to be closed? Or is it maybe that the teacher or the superintendent or the principal or somebody else needs to be changed or something needs to happen?
Nobody mentioned it.
So we ought to have Cole lead us in aerobics or something. He's a wrestling coach, right? So should we keep going for a few more minutes? I think these are great questions. Have you already asked a question?
No.
Okay.
Actually, I'm loud. So across the United States, 29 states, state school board organizations, as well as local school boards, organizations in those states have disassociated from the National School Board Association due to their collusion with the Department of Justice to issue a memorandum that has gone after parents who are maybe rowdy at school board meetings. So the first part of the question is, why has there been no willingness, I guess in all of your opinions, for Utah or even Alpine School District to separate from that? That's actually taxpayer funds that we pay to the National School Board Association and to the Utah School Board Association so that we can go to their conferences, so that they get all these national ideas back to Utah. And there just hasn't been any willingness to separate from that and stop giving them the constituents' money that ends up going outside of Utah. And then the next question, I guess, would be, as a school board member, are you willing or would you be willing to be yelled at by a dumb person?
30 seconds for that.
Sorry.
Okay.
Long-winded.
So let's start right here. Julie.
I would love to. Yes, I am willing to be yelled at by a dumb person. I am not scared. I am not afraid. I am not worried. I want to listen to all opinions, whether or not they are good or bad. Yes, I believe we should disassociate from the National School Board. Our school is very different than New York. Our community is very different than California. We are extremely different from the South, from the North. We are individual, and I do not believe that school was ever meant to be on a national playing field. It wasn't ever meant to be that. So, yes. I don't know who's going.
Should we just go down?
Sure.
All right, so great question. To be honest, it's something I haven't really studied. What are the dues for the National School Board? What do we benefit from? Like, are there some collaboration that's happening where we're learning from more successful states? So that's something I would be willing to look at and investigate, right? Academically, right? Or whatever, test-wise. So I think it's something that I'm open to. I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. And I would look at the data and talk to the involved parties. I think it's important. You know, one of the big pushes right now for teachers in our district has been collaboration and what we can learn from teachers that teach the same subject that we teach and how we can share and get better. And I think that's an important concept of communication and collaboration that I'm in favor of. Now, whether that has to be formal through like a national school board, or if that can happen informally or other ways, you know, that there's through technology, email, and Zoom, there's lots of things that could happen and may be more effective.
I lasted this long not mentioning the union, and I think that's pretty good for me, okay, because I've told many people that I'm a school teacher. I've been in Alpine School District for 25 years, and I've fought against the union for 25 years. National education associations, and that's NEA and National School Board, they have adopted an ideology that doesn't fit with our community. And I don't think that they represent us, and so for us to go and ask for training from them and ask the NEA to have that kind of an influence, and I know you didn't specifically ask about the NEA, but in order for a school teacher to be a part of the AEA in Alpine School District, you also have to join the UEA and the NEA. And the NEA has a tremendous amount of power they wield in our schools, and the UEA has even more power that they wield in our schools, and they don't represent our community's views.
Cole, I've been thinking about what you've been saying about unions, and I mentioned this in a gathering, and the suggestion was made, why don't you teachers organize, charge $1, and have a new organization that we can bargain with?
Do you want me to answer that?
Later.
Will I get a rebuttal?
Yeah, she said her name.
Regarding the NSBA, my understanding is that there was an interim president who basically went rogue when she made these outrageous statements. Alpine School District came out in opposition and protest against what she said, and we have been a part of this organization. We have benefited from it. We have a cohort across the nation of about 15 school districts who have that same level of rigor, meaning AAA bonding, and one of them is Gwinnett County, Georgia. They sent a bunch to visit our schools and communities. They learned a whole lot about what we do on a shoestring.
We'll try to do this in 30 seconds. I went to Alpine School District. I said, I want to be able to talk to new teachers about my organization. I belong to the Association of American Educators. It costs me $16.50 a month. I get a tremendous liability policy. I went to Alpine School District, I said, I want to have the opportunity. I said, you get them, the new teachers have a lunch, I want to be a part of that lunch. They said, well, we can't let you be a part of that lunch, but we'll let you do your own lunch. I said, perfect. At Lone Peak High School, auditorium here, commons here, cafeteria here. They put me in the little theater in the opposite end of the school. I've been trying for 25 years to get teachers to join the Association of American Educators, and I've been fought by the district left and right. I can tell you more stories if you want to stick around and talk to me.
Okay, let's do another question.
So I have a two-part question about technology. So the first part of the question is, what is your stand on student privacy in regards to technology, since it appears that data collection is the new currency in our society? And the other part of the question is, I do worry that technology is used as a bit of a band-aid sometimes to answer and solve problems, and do you think there is a lot of waste when it comes to technology being used in education?
I can start. I haven't started. Hey, thanks for that question. That's an awesome question. So I taught business and marketing. We use technology, obviously, in business and marketing classes quite a bit. But I don't know if our students need more screen time. What do you guys think? You see them at home, right? And this is a really involved issue with lots of, we need to think through it a little bit. But at what age should we give everybody a Chromebook that they take home, right? Are we cutting off sports? Are we cutting off family time, right, with these screens? And I think that data privacy is a huge issue. Google, YouTube they've been sued by states because they said they weren't going to share student data that they look up at school, but then they did. And so to me, this is something I'm very passionate about. I have a lot of background in using technology, and I think you can use it appropriately, and it's wonderful for students. One of my good friends, Brett Zabel, Wasatch, they did a 1-to-1. Their numbers didn't go up, their testing numbers. So we need to study it. We need to be careful with it.
I got asked this question today. Why don't you put your quizzes on Canvas? Here's why I don't put my quizzes on Canvas. Because it's a review. I'm not giving them a quiz. My quizzes are open notes. And I tell the students what I want in their notes. And it's a retention thing. I'm going to ask you a question. It's open note quiz. You're going to look at your notes. You're going to read your notes. You're going to write it again. The number of times that my students repeat the information in my class is significant, so that when I run into them 5 years and 10 years down the road, it's in the long-term memory, not the short-term memory. And so, yeah, I could put my quizzes on Canvas and they could push a button to say, there's the right answer, and they're not going to retain it like how I issue quizzes in my class. So.
I absolutely agree that face-to-face instruction cannot be beat. We've proved that, actually, in the last 2 years. There is an element in that human connection, that relationship, that cannot be replaced electronically. As a school district, we have set in place policy that allows secondary schools to go one-to-one, to use technology. However, it is a local school decision and the parents are involved in that decision, and to what degree they want to be involved with that decision. The policy is in place to receive permissions and protections for the student, but again, it is a local decision driven by the parents in that school.
Oh, my turn.
Sorry, no.
It's okay, I forgive you, Carrie. I absolutely believe that our children's data is important, just like our data is important. I don't need Google sharing what I'm watching on TV or Netflix or what websites I'm visiting. That's my information, that's for me. And that is a currency. That is how people are making their money, and I'm not okay with that. My children's data is nobody's business but mine. The other problem that I have is that technology is absolutely beautiful. I call it a blessed curse because it does help. We have gone strides in years because of technology, but why does my kindergartner need to sit in front of the computer for 3 hours? Why does my second grader need to be able to come home and say, hey mom, I looked this up on Google today and I got this ad that popped up? Why does my fifth grader need to come home and tell me, oh yeah, I actually did a book report, but I just did it from Wikipedia? That is not education. So.
Okay, next question, right? So, Rob, you have, I'll let this guy go behind you, okay?
I don't, excuse me. I don't know that this is a policy, but there seems to be a growing practice of test retakes, another test retake, another test retake, and another test retake. What is your opinion on that, and how can we stop that? In my opinion, we're not bringing these kids up for real life situations. In the real world, if you give a bid for a job and you lose it, you don't get a retake. It's done, and you may lose your job for that. Now, what are we teaching our kids by having a test and then a retake and then a makeup and then this and then that? When I grew up, there was one test, you did good or you failed. That was it. Seemed to work.
Cole, why don't we start?
Sure, I'll go first. Graduation has become very important to administrators. You got to graduate them, right? And it's made it hard for this classroom teacher to hold students accountable. So I agree with you on that. But I'll speak to, look, there is a learning process that happens. If my athlete goes out there and he wrestles and he gets beat, I'm going to bring him back and I'm going to show him what he can do next time to make sure that he can go out and compete at a higher level the next time. And so there's a balance there between holding students accountable and correcting their work and helping them to better their work. And in an English class, you want them writing over and over and over and over again and critiquing that work over and over and over again. And so there's a balance there. But yes, it's been very hard as a school teacher to be undermined by administrators that are purely, often, not purely, but often the focus on graduation is so important that it's hard to hold kids accountable.
Which way should we go?
Go for it.
You're good.
All right, so I'm very passionate about this subject. Like you, I had one test, right? And I think what's happening now, to be honest, is a quarter. I had a kid email me today saying, hey, Mr. Walker, I didn't turn some things in first term. What term are we in now? Fourth term, right? And the student was wondering if he could still turn some things in, right, from first term. And so this is an important issue. I think we have to think about it in two ways. One, are we preparing kids for employment, or are we educating, right? And what's the balance? And this is something that we need to figure out. But Marietta, Georgia, they have a lot of carpet factories. Their school district went to PLCs and retest and redo and retest. The carpet factories came to the school district and said, stop it, right? It's not working for our workforce. So we need to think about education, because we want people to learn, and learning should be the constant and time the variable. But I think this is an important issue.
Right now, I believe there is a policy, and I'm trying to remember what school it is. It's here in Utah. An A is an A. A B is 60%.
B is a what?
A B is 60%. We are not doing a service to our kids by saying, oh yes, you failed, that's okay. We are not doing a service to our children by telling them 60% is passing. Again, I'm a business owner. I can tell you how many kids can follow direction. Not a whole lot. I can tell you how many kids are in a position to be able to be responsible. It's not a lot. I can tell you, being in my own cluster that I'm in, seeing the youth that I interact with regularly on a daily basis, these kids are not being prepared. We don't need to be rigid. We need to have some opportunity to learn. I like Cole, how he, open book, and it's retention, but we can do better.
this is an important issue that I think has been highlighted by the pandemic. So many of our kids kind of fell off the planet, really, academically. And it's been our challenge to figure out how to get them back on path and make them accountable for their work. And it is an important principle. I think these school teachers know there's different kinds of tests and different purposes for tests. And what I really like about Alpine School District is, well, during this pandemic time, every testing at the end of the year became absolutely meaningless. The data is, we just have to throw it out because it doesn't mean anything. But Alpine District is working on in-house assessments that we can rely on and that we can use in-house to assess our students and know how to direct our teaching. I think that's called RTI, right? Return on Instruction. So, thank you.
Okay, next question. If someone else has one, I'll call them in. I'm not picking on you, I'm just gonna let someone else. Okay. Go ahead, sir.
I don't have a
Oh, you have, okay, right in the back.
My wife is a school teacher in Alpine, and I have a son that will be attending Alpine schools in the next couple of years. There was a situation where the school board made some changes to the calendar. It was really last minute, and there wasn't a lot of communication. Would you be willing to involve teachers and parents in those calendar changes if you foresee them coming?
Yeah, I know the situation you're talking about, and it was kind of at the height of the peak. And we had several school board members who they were in the classrooms a lot and were just hearing from teachers, and they were really wanting to fix this. You know how we want to fix this right now. And at the meeting following that, I made an apology to all of you teachers because I didn't ask the right questions. It was actually said in the board meeting that this was not a district recommendation, but the board went and did it anyway. And I think that was ill-advised, and we realized it pretty quick, within 2 days, and we changed course, listened to the teachers who were like, wait, this is really going to make it difficult for us. And I guess we ate humble pie and reversed that decision, and I'm glad we did.
There was one board member that was fighting against that change, and the one board member that was fighting against that has a husband who is a school teacher, okay? There's been a lot of discussion about whether it's a conflict of interest for me to run because I am a school teacher. I think having a school teacher on the board is something we need, because I think I will bring the perspective of a classroom teacher that doesn't exist on the board right now. And in my closing statement, I will address and kind of talk about that. But I think it's the voters should decide, do you want a teacher on the board? Because having that and going through, the last 2 years and dealing with all the things, there have been a lot of decisions that have been made that have made classroom teaching, keeping masks on our kids, made teaching difficult. The interpersonal, the ability to relate and get to know your students and get onto their level was very difficult that year. And it was a mistake to keep masks on our kids for that long.
So I think this is an important issue, and it just highlights kind of this relationship between the school board and the superintendent, right? So a couple of school board members that have been subbing in schools a lot and hearing a few teachers' complaints about COVID and the numbers. And truth be told, there were some issues, right? Some teachers were out sick or called in subs, and there wasn't enough subs. And if your child was pulled into and didn't have a teacher but had a janitor or had a custodian or had pulled into
the theater, or the auditorium for a couple of class periods, it was an issue. However, how it happened, right, without communication and without teacher input was part of the problem, right? So I think you have to be very careful when you make calendar changes that are going to affect parents and daycare and all these other issues without vetting that and communicating it very well.
So I believe that the whole reason that this whole issue came up was because of teacher burnout. That was what they were trying to avoid. There was a lot of teachers who were having hard times. And I absolutely understand that. It's stressful the last couple of years. There have been a lot of things that have been happening. I believe that a lot of the policies that were instituted were wrong. I believe a lot of things that were instituted were wrong. And one of the reasons that teachers were burning out was because the policy was if you were exposed to COVID, you had to stay out for 2 weeks. That's a lot of stress on teachers. Now that teacher has to figure out what to do with that kid for 2 weeks. Now that kid is gone for 2 weeks, and it's just constant. How many of you got your child's been exposed to email? I probably got 7 or 8, maybe probably 10. I can't even think of how many. Of course we had teachers who were stressed out. There were so many policies and procedures that we had, and it didn't follow the science, it didn't follow the data, it didn't make sense.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take 2 more questions. I've got one here, and I'm going to call on you, okay? Is that good? And then we'll have them all have their closing statements, and then if there's any other questions, please come up to the board member afterwards, or the candidates, and get and ask your question. So is that fair? Is everybody good with that? If I do 2 more questions? Okay, here, and then we'll do yours after that.
Thank you. So it's my understanding.
So stand up so they can hear. Oh, here, take my mic.
It's my.
It's on.
It's my understanding.
Yeah, hold this one close.
You have to hold it like super close.
Okay, there we go. It's my understanding that each of you know that the delegates are here to vet you tonight to do an endorsement. Okay. With that, can
Here,
you
louder.
Why don't you stand up? I don't think they can hear you.
Okay. Okay. I understand that each of you know that you're here for an endorsement from the Republican Party. Okay, thank you. With knowing that, I'm curious when each of you has read the party platform for Utah County, because that's what you're seeking one in. And I would read it to you real quick. Education. A well-educated and informed citizenry is essential to the long-term well-being of a free society. The primary responsibility for education rests with the student and family. Parents have the right to choose whether a child is educated in private, public, or home schools, and government should not infringe on that right. To promote excellence, consumer choice in education should be encouraged. Schools or other government entities should not invade the privacy of parents and their children. We favor local accountability and control in all aspects of the education system. Public schools should abstain from teaching promiscuity in any form. So, my question. First of all, have you ever read it? Second of all, is there anything that you don't agree with, you would change, you would add, or delete?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Or okay. I would not take away anything from that other than to add to it of the parents. I've emphasized that even more because without our parents, schools cave. Schools won't work. Your kids won't get their studies done. Our children will fall by the wayside, and our future will be bleak. And so I agree 100% with the platform. Yes, I have read it. I've read it many times actually because I wanted to make sure that's what I also agreed with. I would not change anything other than to emphasize more of the need of families and parents' involvement in school. I feel like there's so many times that we're like, oh, my kids are gone at school, bye! And we don't actually pay attention to what is going on in school. One of the things that's in the platform that I love is the promiscuity. Again, I do not believe in the sexualization of our children at all. At all. And that should be emphasized even more.
Yes, I've read it. Yes, I watched the video at precinct night. I thought it was well done. Some people thought it was boring, but whatever, to each their own. I am in favor of it. Been involved a little bit in Republican politics as a delegate before, and happy to I'm planning on staying involved and supporting the the platform.
Yeah, I support the platform, and the emphasis on parents. My introduction, I said I want to be a parent-centered board member. We also talked about the change that has been proposed by the executive committee to the central committee, and I would vote for that change. I think that change is an important change to make in the Republican Party platform, and so I support the platform, and yes, I have read it, and have been involved in, editing some of that, and involved in looking at updating that platform and creating a situation where it's relevant to the things that we're experiencing and going through right now. So the update on that Republican platform I support, and I would encourage Central Committee members to vote for it.
Yes, Lisa, I have read the platform. As a matter of fact, in our precinct chair became suddenly ill, and we had to kind of take the ball and run with it, and we took turns reading the platform, so it was very entertaining. I agree with the platform. I don't agree with something that seems to be unsaid, but is happening in policy in the legislature. And that is, I agree that parents have choice. I just don't think that I should have to pay for every parent's choice. It's kind of like if I have a shoe factory and somebody says, you'll be better if you have competition. And so we're going to build another shoe factory across the street and you have to pay for it. That's kind of what it's like in public education. I think we have a chance to build one wonderful school system that's continually improving as we all contribute to it.
That's time.
And I think that the choice after that, we pay for competing charter schools, but I don't want vouchers.
Okay, our last question.
We've been talking a lot about watching the data and learning from the data and using data, and a lot of conversation that we've had tonight is kind of data driven. So over the last 2 years, we have gathered a significant amount of data concerning COVID-19 and what the effects of that disease are, what the efficacy of masks are, some of the side effects of vaccines are. All of this stuff is now coming out in the data. Given that there are so many different sides to our healthcare, will you commit as a board member to allow parents to have the ultimate decision on any health decision made for their child?
Start with Cole.
Sure. All right, so do you remember that Utah County Health Department board meeting that I went to? I was reading the data, I was studying the data, I was looking at the data, and I was saying, who's making these decisions? Because the decisions are not lining up with the data. I'm looking at the data, and this is not what it's not lining up. And so I went and I spoke out at that meeting. A week later, I spoke out. Tanner Ainge was trying to institute a mask mandate in Utah County, and on that night, I had parent-teacher conference, and I could not attend that county commission meeting. Okay, so it was parent-teacher conference. I sat at my desk. I don't know if you've seen how parent-teacher conference goes at the high school level, but in a 3-hour block, I probably had 10 parents. There's people playing video games and doing all kinds of things. I was watching a Zoom meeting for the commission. I raised my hand in the meeting, I made a comment, and an hour later, my principal comes in, direction from above, and suspends me without pay for participating in a Zoom meeting because they didn't like what I said.
Wow. It was the principal.
It wasn't the principal's fault. The principal was told by the superintendent to do that.
Who was the superintendent at that time?
Sam Jarman.
Yeah, not the one now. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah. Yes. That's the only answer that I have. My children came home with sores on their mouth. My children came home with headaches, with sore throats, with countless things, low morale, absolutely hated school, they actually asked to be homeschooled, which was a surprise. I'm not a teacher, guys. They wanted to be homeschooled because they did not want to deal with the masks. They did not want to deal with the shaming that was going on. My son went to the principal and begged, please don't make me wear a mask because it hurts. It hurts. And the principal said, I'm sorry, we'll lose our funding. Yes, I am in complete support of medical freedom. My kids, myself, we have issues with vaccinations. I almost died when I was a kid. I have long-term effects from vaccination. Do you really think that I'm not going to protect my own children and anybody else's children who are on the same effect? Yes. Medical freedom? Yes. Yes.
I'll finish up. I'll back clean up.
Yes, I think we have learned a lot in the last 2 years. I've talked to teachers who've said and told me how difficult it is to teach in a mask. I don't think any of us enjoy the experience of wearing a mask. I want to say that everyone has their own experiences surrounding mask wearing, and I have stopped being the judge of those experiences. I think those experiences are valid. That said, I think there's also, as a board member, I received the emails and I started filing them, mask, no mask, so that I could keep track of what the public says. It was honestly about 50-50. And so I'm telling you what I had. And there are people who have elderly people who live in their households who are undergoing, for example, my brother doing stem cell treatment, who have children with diabetes, who have other medical issues, and I think that they're a little bit heartsick that really nobody seems to care about them.
Okay, we'd like to thank.
So let me just talk about data and data-informed decisions for a minute. It's really important, and we mentioned it tonight, but I think there's a whole process that needs to happen where we have to agree so what source are we getting the data from, right? That's like question number one. And then two, do we trust that source, right? Is there a different perspective? And so I think there's a whole lack of data literacy sometimes among the population and education. Cole and I taught the same class for a while. We gave the same test. We gave that state test all around Utah. For 10 years, that data for the state test wasn't examined until Cole and I did a report together one summer. So I think it's really important to kind of figure out a process and look at the data and communicate and get some buy-in.
So the question was, will you commit to letting parents make that decision? Not where's the data coming from? Will you commit to letting parents make healthcare decisions for their kids?
So as I understand it right now, parents do have some decision-making authority over the decisions for their kids. So what you're asking is, do you want parents to have more than they currently have?
Well, in the past, the decision was, if you want to come to our school, you have to do these things, right? So that's not empowering parents. That's, do you want to homeschool or do you want a public school?
Yeah.
That a lot of times is not a choice because parents can't homeschool or they don't have the facility or the financial ability to privately school. So
I think that's a really important question. I would say in general, I support that principle. However, let me just put a little caveat on that, is that I believe vaccinations in general, like for smallpox and measles and stuff, work. And if all parents decided not to get their kids vaccinated and send them to public schools, I could see that we could have some issues, right? So I think the school has a moral authority to provide a safe learning environment, and that might incentivize people to do rational behaviors of proven vaccines, right? So are you saying that kids, I mean, we could go on this all night, but I just think parents should have rights, right? And that the school should check and balance that, and it should be a local process.
Okay, so we'd like to thank all four of these candidates. We're going to all let them each take 2 minutes and do a closing summary. I don't live in the Mountain View cluster, but it's been fascinating to hear the differences and the similarities and your opinions, so we thank you. And I'll tell you what, it's not easy to run, as you all know. So we thank you as citizens of Orem, for each of you, for your willingness to run and to put yourself out there. And the thing I would say about everyone that's here, please reach out to your friends and neighbors. If you just walk away from this and you go, oh, that was interesting, and you have an opinion one way or the other, what you heard, that doesn't do much if you don't share it. So please go back and share and say, here's my impressions, here's my feelings. That's your role, I think, as a concerned citizen. Please share your opinion. So let's start. Let's start right here. We'll go work our way down, and this is a closing statement at 2 minutes.
Oh, lucky me. This is the final, here's everything. I think the most important thing to understand about me as a member of the board is that I believe thoroughly in common sense. I believe thoroughly in if something doesn't make sense, why are you doing it? I believe thoroughly in parents' rights. I believe thoroughly in the fact that these are our children. They are ours, and we need to be making the decisions on what we do with them. Nobody else should be allowed to have that decision. That's our responsibility. Parents' rights are important and they matter. I care so deeply for the future. So deeply. I have a lot of people who say, oh, why don't you homeschool your kids? You clearly don't like what's going on as far as, the teachings of ideologies that you disagree with. Why don't you homeschool? But then what does that do to our future? What does that do to what's going on to happen? What's going to happen is that we're going to have ideologies that are going to indoctrinate our children. They're happening now. We're seeing it now. Where we were 20 years ago is very different than where we are today. Where we were 10 years ago is very different than where we are today. I believe so strongly that we need to make sure that we are on the correct course. I am a constitutionalist, I'm a conservative, I'm a Christian. Christians first. If I can't have my morality and I can't do things and I can't look in God's face and say, I did what was right, I did what I know you wanted me to do, I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing.
So thanks for coming out tonight. It's been fun and interesting questions. My name is Carson Walker. I'm asking for your vote for the Alpine School Board. I'm a 26-year veteran teacher in the district, retiring. I'll have time. I love our schools. I think we're doing a good job. I think there's things we can tweak that we need to improve on. For sure, we need to look at data and data literacy. We need to look at lots of issues. I'm a coach. I coach tennis, and when we talk about parents' rights, we need to understand that if I have a set of parents that want their daughter to play number one, and I have another set of parents that want their daughter to play number one, both parents have rights, right? Would you agree? They're both advocating for their child, right? And as a coach, you have to make those tough playing decisions, right? And Cole's a coach as well. So there's things we need to, we have to balance parents' rights. All parents have rights, right? So tonight's been a common theme, but the public school exists in a community, and I believe in collaboration and community building. I've done that over my career. I've brought in a lot of business speakers into my classes. I've had my kids involved with a lot of businesses, and it's something that I think is really important, to listen to community members, to respond to concerns, to address issues, to be open to communication, to be humble, to learn, to be teachable, and I would like that opportunity to do that with the Alpine School District.
I'm going to ask and answer my own question. Cole Kelly, are you eligible to be a school board member if you're a school teacher? And my answer is, I think that is something that the voter should decide. We've learned over the last 2 years that just because a politician puts something into the code does not mean that it's lawful, right? And right now there's a lot of people trying to push me out of this race. Okay, and they're trying to push me out of this race because there's a sentence in Utah code that says a member of the board cannot be an employee of the board. Now, it reads just like that. A member of the board cannot be an employee of the board. I have never considered myself an employee of the Alpine Board of Education. I consider myself an employee of Alpine School District. I think having the voice of a teacher on the board is critical and can help avoid some of the scenarios that we've been dealing with over the last couple of years. So what am I doing? I've reached out to Sean Reyes, who has responded to me. I've got Adam Pomeroy that I've reached out to, who is also doing some things, and I'm going to fight a legal battle, and I'm going to allow the voters to decide, do you want a school teacher on the board? And if I win, I'm planning to serve, and I'm planning to teach. And I think that the voters have a right to make that decision.
When I was asked to run for school board 4 years ago, I said, well, let me find some other people to ask. Surely there's somebody, I could think of several people who would be very excellent school board members, one of whom was here in this building tonight. But each one had different circumstances, reasons that it was not a good time for them. And my husband and I realized that this was a good time for us. And this has become our mission. And I committed at that time that if I ran, that I would also commit to another 4 years. And that is my commitment to you, that I would serve diligently for another 4 years if elected. I really appreciate getting to know Jody, Karsten, and Cole, sorry. I think we make each other better candidates in this race, and I hope that you have learned something here tonight. I would just encourage you to ask us questions, continue to ask us questions. I look forward to being out of pandemic times and working on our board goals. One of them is to retain excellent teachers. I think you're going to be really, really pleased in the near future at the things that we have put in place to make the teaching profession a career that people can make a living in. Second, we're working on class size. We have made changes in the structure of schooling. We call it scaling, so that each school will have a certain, you won't have to use your FTEs to fill spots in custodial or secretarial. But those FTEs will now go directly to impact class size. I'm excited about that. But the third thing we're working on is community engagement. And I don't know if you knew, but there's a feedback button on the website that anybody can put in a question, and we respond within 24 hours. I am available to you at any time. It's my time. Oh, thank you. Sorry, didn't see that.
Before you guys go, please pick up those chairs and help me put it up there. I know you enjoyed
I know. Hey, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
From my wife who is viewing this stream. I got you live right now.
Okay.
She says, do you support giving kids surveys from social and emotional learning that arguably have a political bent? Do you believe that there is any benefit to social and emotional learning training with a transformative lens?
No, I don't believe that we need to be surveying these children. What is your pronoun? What is your, how do you prefer to identify? How are you emotionally? I again, this is a parental situation. If the parents are involved with their children and aren't actually asking those questions and finding out what's going on in their children's lives, that's a problem. That's where the problem starts. And so no, these surveys and all these things, I actually did a survey today and it asked those questions. What's your marital status? What's your gender? What do you identify as? And I was like, I'm done. That's completing the survey.
What was your name?
Jody.
Jody what?
Jody Hassan.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for your answers.
Thank you.
Standing
Thank you
up.
for living it.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
definitely.
I'm playing tomorrow morning.
I came for practice here.
Hey, I had a question for my wife who was watching this on live stream.
Okay, cool.
And she wanted to know, do you support giving kids surveys for social and emotional learning that arguably have a political bent? And do you believe there's any benefit to social and emotional learning training with a transformative lens?
I don't think I would agree with the transformative lens, and I don't think you should do push surveys. So surveys designed to influence, right? A survey should be, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Like should be collecting information instead of pushing information. So I have a big problem with push surveys. I think the designers are kind of evil.
For sure.
Yeah.
Cool. What was your name?
Karsten Walker.
Cool. Thank you very much for your answers and for standing up and running.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Cole.
Yeah.
Hey, I had a question for my wife who was watching on the live stream.
Right on, yeah.
And she wanted to know, do you support giving students surveys for social and emotional learning that are arguably have a political bent? Do you believe that there's any benefit to social and emotional training with a transformative lens?
No, I don't. This is the stuff that's seeping into our education system. That we talked about data throughout this debate, right? And what are you doing with that data? And what's that survey going to serve, right? And so yeah, and I agree that there's a slant to those surveys. You get political surveys all the time, right? And I get these political surveys, and I can tell which candidate it came from because it's a slanted survey. Would you vote for this? Who would you vote for? Oh, well, what about this candidate? Oh, what about this candidate? And they slant that survey. And so, yeah, I mean, it's stuff that's infiltrating subtly into the education system. And we've got to be aware of it, and we've got to root it out of our system.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for standing up. What was your name again?
Cole Kelly.
Cole Kelly.
Yeah.
Cool. My wife's interviewed 2 of the 3 sheriff's candidates because she's a county delegate.
All right. Yeah.
And she'd asked me if you'd be open for an interview as well, like a Zoom interview.
I'd love to do that.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
All right. You're like on Facebook or something?
I can give you my contact information.
You got a flyer or something? That'd be great.
I got a flyer and some
Thank
stuff,
you.
so thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thanks for standing up and running.
My family's position is on all, and I realized when we first were making this decision that it was kind of a community commitment because it was going to be an imposition on a lot of families, and I can't deny your experience. It's absolutely, but I think it was, as a community, we have to make this clear. So can you consider switching next year to not have the same schools and stuff with the discussion committee? I can bring that up in discussion. I don't know. If it's a busing thing or whatever, it's still busing issues are crazy. I don't know if you saw the headline in the Daily Herald today. We are short of one driver right now. And it's crazy. Going to work like it's crazy for sure. Absolutely. So we're looking for bus drivers. Are you filming?
Yes, you're live right now. I had a question for you.
Thank you. Your first name is Sherry. You're like my mom. I can look out in the audience and you're smiling. And I just lost my mom. So.
I'm sorry.
You have a question?
Yeah, my wife's on the live stream, and she wanted to know if you support giving students surveys for social and emotional learning that arguably have a political bent. Do you believe that there is any benefit to social and emotional learning training with a transformative lens?
Well, I think that our kids are having social and emotional problems. This year, across the nation, has been unprecedented in as far as behavior issues go, and our district has been no exception. Something is going on with our kids, and we're trying to get on top of it. We have counselors, psychologists. There's called BCBAs, which are board certified behavior analysts, who are acting as supports for the teachers, so the teachers don't have to play all those roles, because that's not what they were trained to do. So these are trained professionals who are trained to recognize and understand what's going on, for example, in the life of a child whose mother has breast cancer, or in the life of a child whose parents are divorcing. These issues are reflected in our classrooms. Teachers know it, and administrators know it, and they're having to deal with the consequences, which are sometimes really out of control kids, and we're trying to...
Are you familiar with the content of some of these surveys, like asking kids their gender identity, or if they have a name other than their given name that's on the school record, stuff like that?
I believe that those decisions about gender identity should be parent-driven and not teacher-driven. In other words, a teacher does not have the right to ask those questions of the student. They should be driven by the parent, by the student.
Gotcha. And what was your name?
Ada Wilson.
Ada Wilson, cool. Thank you for your answers, and thanks for running for school board.
Thank you. Appreciate your help.
Thank you. There you have it.
Thank you for keeping time. That is
Yeah.
a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
You're welcome.
No, but they